So, Tony, you were talking about bullying earlier on, and the fact that there's a culture of bullying in the police now. And it seems to me that when police officers are being bullied or brutalised for speaking out, that there's a danger that when that happens, and particularly, as you've said, you know, they're being used increasingly for riot control and not for community policing, that there could develop, I'm not saying there has developed, but there could develop a culture of brutality within the police.
Right, well, yeah, what I actually said was there's the potential for that. I'm not saying that all
so there isn't bullying?
No, you talked about the officers are just doing riot control. No,
yeah.
I've said there's the potential that as you withdraw from non-confrontational contact with the public, then by definition, increasingly, you're likely to be involved in confrontational scenarios, because that's what's happening with the restructure of numbers. But in terms of bullying, what I would talk about is that's been recognised, as I said, by the Public Accounts Select Committee in relation, for example, to performance management and crime stats. So just to put a bit of emphasis on that, because police officers in law at the moment are not employees, other than for health and safety law, they cannot go to tribunals unless there's a diversity element. So
sorry, so if you're saying if I felt I was being bullied because I'm
a woman,
not white, or I'm
or
a woman, or whatever,
gay, exactly,
then I could go to a tribunal.
Yes,
but you couldn't.
Well,
if you
no, I'm quite Santan, but no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So why can't they?
Well, because they're not employees. In law, you can only go to a tribunal. It's an employment tribunal.
But I mean, doesn't the Police Federation have a tribunal or something?
No.
So where do they take their complaints?
Well, they certainly can't go to tribunals, so there's no judicial outcome unless there's criminal proceedings or civil proceedings, which doesn't occur. Okay. So this is a very specific benefit to citizens and police officers of police choice by officers being able to become employees in that sense.
So a union would give them that.
Well,
I mean, would the union give them the right to strike?
Well, the employment rights includes the right to strike, but in terms of going back to bullying, is the impact of that is that the whole culture of requiring officers to spin, etc., is not in the interest of officers, because that's not what they want to do, not in the interest of the public.
Right.
So I'm saying there's a wider implication here with that.
Okay. But could they strike?
At the moment they can't.
At the moment
but in the rest of Europe, they've got that right. But frankly, if it reaches the stage that the situation is mismanaged to the extent that police officers vote to go on strike, well then something has gone seriously wrong, hasn't it?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, talk to me about diversity though, Tony, really. I mean, every time I've dealt with the police, as I say, they've been great. They've all been white male police officers, almost without exception. And, you know,
how was the service?
The service was good, but there have been times when, you know, if I've seen an officer from an ethnic minority background, or, you know, I do a double take. I look again, because for me, as somebody of a diverse background and a woman, it's reassuring to see more people who look like me as part of the police service. Why are they having such a problem recruiting ordinary people like me? You know, I might be in a minority, but there's not that few of us.
Well, I've outlined some of the reality behind the conditions.
Yeah.
Would you describe that as an attractive proposition?
No.
No. So
it's not professional. I mean, it's not a professional career that I would, you know, recommend to somebody who wants to make a professional career, although I do know that if you do get to the top of the barrel in policing, I think from what I've read in the papers, the salaries aren't exactly poor, which of course is more reason for them to maintain the status quo and not be in service to the public, but to be in cahoots with the government.
Well, I think for me the emphasis I would put on, and you've used the word professional, is policing should be a profession in the appropriate sense. So continuous professional development, etc., etc. And that includes not just being able to have meal breaks, but proper professional development.
Yes.
All of that over the last 10 or so years has been whittled down. So from proper interactive training, even legal training, course after course is either outsourced to external people or is dumbed down in content, including duration, because all of this training is seen as an abstraction, and that's the word that different chief constables have used, rather than an investment. So in other words, it's about doing what you say and meaning what you say. So if policing is to become the profession that attracts people, well then the terms and conditions and the manner in which officers are professionalised needs to take place.
I understand that. But I mean, aren't you in danger really by, I mean, couldn't somebody say that you're actually inciting the police to, I don't know, be disaffected, or because you are the focus where police can actually come and if they're brave enough, put their signature and say how concerned they are.
Right, okay, well to me the word disaffection is quite straightforward. It means reducing morale. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
it seems it's low enough already,
well,
frankly.
Okay, but several things. First of all, the legal opinion from people in matrix chambers who are experts in human rights and employment law, and Lee and Day solicitors, and they've actually even put a comment about this on the website to say it's totally lawful for police officers to engage in lawful activity in support of a lawful activity. Right. It's totally lawful for officers to seek employment rights, so any activity in relation to that absolutely is okay. In terms of myself, I went on the record on the blog a couple of years ago, is the people who've caused and continue to cause disaffection in the police are the likes of David Cameron, Theresa May, and now sadly from yesterday, Mike Penning. They absolutely reduce the morale tenfold. One quick example, from the time of Winston Churchill, it was the habit at Christmas time for prime ministers in this country, this is even in wartime, to give a Christmas card to members of their armed guard as a little thank you. Who was the first prime minister who did? David Cameron.
Maybe he's busy.
No, he can't be bothered. He can't be bothered. He can't be bothered. So if Winston Churchill in wartime can be bothered, every other police officer who's served under all those successive prime ministers of all, both parties, you might say, they've all found the time. Sometimes during wartime.
It's a breakdown of trust. No. There's all sorts of breakdowns. That
it's called common courtesy. It's nothing about trust. It's common courtesy.
And respect.
Is they put their lives on the line for him. Yeah. Okay. And he can't be bothered to give them a Christmas card. So that's quite instructive.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm before I put my name to anything on police, Joyce, because I've grown up a lot of my life in the Middle East, and I've worked in countries where a knock at the door at midnight means that your neighbours don't see you the next day. So I want to be quite sure that if I put my name to something on your website, that I'm not going to get a knock on the door at midnight and my neighbours don't see me the next day. So what you're saying to me is that what you're doing is completely legal.
Yes,
and your calling for a union is completely legal. And so people like me shouldn't be frightened of expressing our support for what you're trying to do for police officers.
Well, if it's good enough for the rest of the EU, it must be good enough for the police officers in the UK. And if my word isn't good enough, then the words of Richard Stein, one of the partners at Lee and Day in London, who specialises in these activities, is quite instructive. What I'd also say is that both of those firms actually have police misconduct departments.
Oh, right.
Okay, so the fact that they are supporting this is actually quite a strong indicator, not just of the lawfulness, but actually brings it all together, is policing and human rights are totally indivisible, and that's what the citizens in this country demand.
I mean, I think the citizens in this country have been quite spoiled by the police force that we've had, and because I've lived overseas a lot, I've lived in countries where people are actively frightened of the police, and I think it would be a very sad day for Britain if that were to ever happen. And all the legislation that's going through at the moment about being able to read people's personal emails and stuff gets rushed.
It's already gone through.
It's gone through.
It's gone through. It's going to be there on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, things get rushed through. The democratic process, it seems to me, is being undermined the whole time. And you know, as a citizen, I'd like to know what I can do about that.
Yeah, well, I think.
And I hope somebody from government watches this, and because I'm not going to be window dressing. No, I really want to know what people like me can do to help.
Well, the question I would like asked, or entitled to ask your MP, is this: when that public body, the Public Accounts Select Committee, on the record, have confirmed that political pressures have actually led to bullying, to spin lies to the public, so that the figures, crime figures that they keep relying upon to keep cutting the police and trying to reassure public that everything's hunky-dory, they've said can't be relied upon. So I think the question for me is, as a concerned citizen, well, what are they doing about it?
And what's the MP doing about it? Okay, well I'll do that. I'll write to Anne Lane and ask.
Well, you can always write. That can be answered, by a lackey, or heaven forbid the MP themselves, because they all have surgeries. So what I personally did is I wanted to look in the eyes of Mike Penning, which I've done several times, and quite a nice experience. Gone along to his surgery, spoken to him as I'm entitled to. So that's what I would do. I'd never rely on emails or letters, because you can't.
Well, you get fobbed off.
Exactly.
And that's happened to me with
the
police station.
Look in their eyes, and then you can judge, is that a person that you want to represent you?
Absolutely. Thanks very much.